practice test out, please.
I'll try to get clear.
Get over there. Walk through the window. We'll learn through that window.
Right.
Yeah, Brandon.
It's not good.
Brandon, this is Brandon too.
No, you didn't.
I guess Randall's not here.
I didn't.
Did I ask?
I don't know. Did you ask?
Can you see the chair?
I need it back.
I can't remember asking you that.
That doesn't mean I want That doesn't mean I want to.
Did I ask you? You asked?
Yeah, I don't wanna be here. You did it better?
Cambodia.
Yeah, you.
Alright.
I have something here.
Let's go, we're gonna finish going over that, and we're gonna at least cover the first few. We did number 4 together, the graph.
We did like through like 6 or something.
You
did
did
just
7.
The 7? No way.
Yeah, we did.
Alright, cause we did domain and range. Alright, take a look at 7 here, and we're gonna split up. Some of you will go over there with Mr. Schler, some of you will stay here, and some of you will work on your own for this one. But 7, alright, first thing here, it says identify the what? Identify the zeros. Jason.
1, 0, and then 3, 0.
Yes, and you wrote them down in the correct format. Okay, you want to write 1, 0 and 3, 0. Okay, you want to do that. All right, now axis symmetry. What is that, or how do I write that? All right, here's the practice. Okay. George, you got axis symmetry? How do you write it?
X equals 2.
X equals 2. You have to write it with the X part. It's got to say X equals 2. So that's that line just cuts it in half. Okay, so that's what we're looking for there. So for 8, Braden, what are my zeros and what's my axis of symmetry? Yep.
Oh, I did it wrong.
How'd you do it wrong?
I just did it wrong.
What is that?
I don't know.
Jay,
Is it -6, 0, and then -1, 0?
not -6. Look again.
I think there's 7. Wait a minute. -5.
-5, 0, and then what?
-1.
Okay, and then how about our axis of symmetry?
That would be X equals -3.
Okay, -3. All right, fix it.
I don't have a pencil.
You have a pen?
Hey.
I have a highlighter.
There you go. All right, now for, we already did 4. All right, 9 and 10 and 11. Taylor, do you remember how to do number 9?
No.
Brooke, do you remember how to do number 9?
I think so.
How do you do it?
X equals -b over 2a.
All right, so if you don't have that, write that down for number 9. You use the equation x equals -b
Oh, I did not.
over 2a. Okay, that is the only way we can do this one. So you plug in your b value, you plug in your a value. Now, all right, Kaylee, what is the b value? What do you think? Do you remember? Good. B is whatever goes to the x. B is -2. What is the a value? Ooh, no, a is not. It's what goes. It's whatever's in front of the x squared. That's a negative. You treat as a -1. So this negative is always there in front of the b. So when we put minus or -b, you got to put minus -2. 2 times -1. Okay, for that. Well, minus a -2 is a +2 divided by -2. So the answer to that one is -1. x equals -1. Like, so you gotta write it in that format. All right, number 10, find the axis symmetry for this one. All right, same idea, x equals -b over 2a. Hayden, what goes in for b? What goes in for a? All right, here's where you gotta watch. Some of you get to this point and you just type this in your calculator and you do -16 divided by 2 times 2. Whoops.
We did most of this in class.
And that says -16. That is not the answer. That is not the answer. What is the answer? The answer is -4. Here's what I would always tell you to do is these aren't very big numbers. So just take and make sure you take the denominator down to one number. What's 2 times 2? 4. So this is -16 divided by 4. You got to come up with x equals -4. Yes, you can put the denominator in parentheses. That will also work. But I think it's even easier just to make sure that your denominator is one number. Okay, and you can use your calculator. So you just gotta be careful, because if you miss this part, then like for number 11, you're gonna miss the rest of the vertex. All right, so we gotta do number 11. Find the vertex of the parabola, y equals -x squared minus 12x minus 32. Brittany, how am I gonna do this?
You take 12 and 32 and you factor them.
Because you're doing that on your test.
Oh,
Mia.
that's fine. We do the x equals -b over 2a, and then after we get the x, we plug the x in for everything, and we get y.
Very good. You got to do that. Exactly like you said. You got to figure out what x is, x symmetry. Then take that answer, plug it in, and find the y. All right, my b is -12, so it's going to be minus -12. 2 times a, which is -1. Minus -12 is 12. 2 times -1 is -2. I got -6. So x equals -6. All right, how many people actually did this and then plugged it in on your own? All right, those of you who do not have a hand up, take -6, plug it in for it, and see what you get for y. Okay, see what you get for y. Now here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take what you did yesterday and what you're gonna do today. You're gonna turn in we're gonna take a grade on your practice test. So it's gonna end up being a 20-point, like a normal 20-point grade. So if you didn't finish the part yesterday, you gotta finish it today. Okay, get 8 then. Why are you doing all your work on that?
That's what I did.
Alright, put on the list, grocery list.
It's the zigzag. It's band-aid.
Let's get it in there.
Oh, garbage. I feel like live or something.
Yeah. Pretty, why are you doing 0 right now? Like nothing.
It was like,
Yes.
Did you 0?
Oh, what do I have?
Yeah, first you have a question.
I had a question.
Which question?
What did you get for number 6?
Number 6? Where's the difference? That would be y, the range, the main of all those numbers. Range, y, this -2. Audrey, what'd you get for your y value? 4, good. So it should be -6 squared minus 12 times -6 minus 32. You should get 4. Now you're gonna write this as the point, -6, 4. You absolutely have to do that. Okay, what'd you get there, Braden, that you're looking all confused?
did the thing again and I canceled my calculator.
Is what? Hit second click. Okay, Lee.
I got 76. How did
Okay,
I don't know.
hey, listen. Okay, you gotta start with a negative. Parentheses. -6 squared minus 12 times -6 minus 32. 4. Did you enter in your calculator or did you do piece by piece?
I didn't put it in. I just did it on paper.
All I can.
All right, well, if you're gonna do it on paper, -6 squared is 36. This negative will still be in front of there. -12 times -6 is positive 72. That gives you positive 36 minus 32. That gives you 4. Still gonna get the same thing.
Since that's negative.
All right. I want you to see exactly how it's going to be organized tomorrow so that you have an idea what's going on. So 12 and 13, you're going to see those problems. This is what it's going to look like. This is the problem straight off of the practice test. This is the same example. Each one of those is going to be worth 7 points. Number 19 is going to be worth 7 points. As well. So we're going to skip around a little bit. You need to see how this is formatted so you know exactly what you write down. All right, so for number 12, we're just going to go through this together. Put your answers on that answer sheet I gave you. Axis of symmetry. Okay? George, you know how to find the axis of symmetry?
Yes.
How do I do it?
Negative b to, or over, okay, hold on, wait. Maybe not.
Okay, this is why we're doing this. This is Brooke, how do I find axis of symmetry?
X equals negative b over 2a.
So you got this area right in the middle. I'm gonna do all my work right here. X equals negative b over 2a. All right, Nick, what goes in for b, what goes in for a? B would be -4, A would be 1. All right, so put that in there. Minus -4, 2 times 1. Well, that gives me 4 divided by 2, which is what? 2. You really absolutely have to double check everything here. So under axis of symmetry, you have to write x equals 2. Not just 2, x equals 2. Figure that out now. See where we're at?
Yeah.
All right. So you got x equals 2. All right, how do I find the vertex? Now George has it.
You plug it in.
Plug in the 2 into the equation. All right, so let's plug in. Y equals 2 squared minus 4 times 2 minus 3. Use your calculator, that's fine. It doesn't really matter to me. Just get the right answer. That's what should I end up getting for my Y value?
Give me a second to solve the problem.
What'd you say? -1?
I got -7.
You got what?
It's -7.
-7. I would use at least use your calculator to check yourself.
I got -7.
I got -7.
-7. Leighton, what do I put under vertex right here?
2 -7.
You put the point 2 -7. All right, so at this point, Leighton,
I was gonna tell you to do the y-intercept.
what is the y-intercept?
-3. 0, -3.
Okay, y-intercept is the number that is just by itself. as always the case. So it is 0, -3. All right, now before I find the two other points, I need to graph what I have. So axis of symmetry is x equals 2. We gotta draw a dotted line at x equals 2 all the way down. The vertex has to be on the axis of symmetry. It is 2, -7. So you put a dot there. And the y-intercept is 0, -3. Now this tends to be, so put those points in there. Slow down on the two additional points. This tends to be the toughest part. Some of you have a good handle on it, and some of you still struggle a little bit. You cannot just put any 2 points at random. There are 2 specific points that will go down here. Okay? So I'm gonna make this a little XY chart. You have to look at your axis of symmetry. Which side is the y-intercept on? Is it on the left or on the right? So on the left. I need the 2 x values that are closest to the axis of symmetry, but on the same side, which is the left side, as the y-intercept. So the axis of symmetry is 2. Move to the left. What's the first x value I come to?
Oh, we're moving on the left at first.
Got to do it on the left because the y-intercept. You do it the same side as the y-intercept. And it's not an option. It has to be that side.
Be 1
It'd be 1
and -1.
and then -1 because you're going to skip over 0 because we actually already know that point. So those of you don't have options, it has to be 1 and -1. So now you substitute those into the equation and you figure out what you get. So you do y equals 1 squared minus 4 times 1 minus 3. And then you plug in -1 for that. All right, Brooke, you got anything for plugging in 1?
-6.
Oh, you all right there, Audrey?
No, I got him.
-6, and how about -1? Anybody got -1?
I'm working on it. Wait.
5. What you got?
0.
Ooh, no,
I got
No, it's -6.
for -1.
Oh,
I got 2.
2.
How did I get negative? How did I get 0?
You can't use a calculator.
Good job.
Okay. Yeah, Lee, did you plug it in and make sure you get that right? So now here's on this line right here.
Wait, Mr. Dillon, what did I do wrong?
Oh,
You gave me the wrong. I got it for that.
When you plug it in, all right, you're plugging in, you have a 2 in that first spot. Wherever there's an X, it has to be that 1. So it has to be 1 squared minus 4 times 1 minus 3.
Okay, I thought that had 2 was in that.
And that 2 is when we did the axis of symmetry to find the vertex. All right, and so now you plot those points, 1, -6. We also know this should look like a V, or not a V, a U. So it's, make sure it follows this pattern. Now, any point to the left of the axis of symmetry, there's a mirror point on the right. And so you go however many units you need to. So from -1, 2, I need to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then you should have 3 points on the left, 3 points on the right. Draw your nice parabola through there, put some arrows on it, extend past those points. So you got that. So this is an exact problem with, obviously I'm going to change the equation, but you're going to have to give me the axis of symmetry, you're going to have to give me the vertex, you're going to have to give me the y-intercept, 2 other points, graphic. It's worth 7 points. Okay, 13. It's really the same type of problem. Everything else is the same except your equation. Do you know which direction this opens? Brain triplet, which way does this one open?
Down.
Oh, it's gonna open down. So you gotta make sure. Axis of symmetry, x equals negative b over 2a, which is the opposite of negative 4, over 2 times negative 2. Again, you gotta watch just typing that in your calculator. Figure out the top number is gonna be 4. The bottom number is gonna be negative 4, so it looks like I get what, negative 1? Anybody else agree with that? I'll make sure I'm right. Negative 1? All right, I'm gonna draw it in now. You gotta draw a dotted line in to negative 1. Now, it's just a little bit to the left of those numbers that go down the axis, but that's what it looked like. All right, now you gotta plug in negative 1 into the equation to see what you get so you can figure out the vertex. So do that. Yeah. So when I plug in negative 1, y equals negative 2, negative 1 squared. Let me know what you get because you're a little calculator challenge here.
I have 4.
Oh, you are, oh, how are you getting 4? What are you doing?
I got this.
All right, negative 2, the first number right in front of the x is negative 2. Then you have to have parentheses. Negative 1
I do.
squared. You have a negative 2 in the very front. Minus 4 times negative 1 minus 2, which is 0. Did you figure out what you did wrong? So vertex is negative 1, 0. So I can go over here. I can put that there. Y-intercept. Okay, y-intercept.
I can get that.
What is that?
Negative 2.
There you go. Make sure you write down 0, negative 2. So 0, negative 2. All right, now these 2 points, the x values are very critical here. And you can't just pick them at random. What do the 2 x values I absolutely have to use? 1 and 2. They have to be on the right-hand side because the y-intercept is on the right. We skip over 0, so you go to 1 and 2. Now, when you plug in 2, it's actually going to give me a y value that's not on the graph. That's okay. Tomorrow, I'll make sure they work out. But when you plug in 1 and then plug in 2, just see what you get and make sure it opens down. You get, I'll go for 1.
For 1, I got negative 8, and then 2 is negative 18.
Look.
Because I already had it done.
Okay, 1 should be negative 8. 1 should be negative 8. And 2 should be negative 18. So, all right, so 2 doesn't really show up on a graph. I'll make sure that doesn't happen tomorrow. All right, what is going on here? Delete. And so I got 1 negative 8. And I'm just going to kind of estimate 2 negative 18 would be down here somewhere. All right, mirror point on the other side. Bless me. And then we said it opens down. So that would be the case. Okay. All right, how many points are each one of those worth?
7.
7. The test tomorrow is 54 points, so that's 3 problems worth 7 each, that's 21.
It's like.
So, and you know exactly what to write. And you just need to review this, at least look at it before the test. All right, we're going to jump down to 19 just because it's a graph. I think I'm going to. Where is 19 at? There it is. All right, we'll jump down to 19 because we got it on that paper. Now this one is a graph, but you have to follow the directions. You do it slightly different. What does it tell us to find first? Or what do we need to do? It says graph the following, identify the coordinates of the vertex. You should tell me the vertex just by looking at this, just how it moves. All right, you remember how this moves in terms of right and left or up or down? The x minus 2 in parentheses does one thing. It moves it right 2. Okay, this is the one where it's the opposite. Like if it's a minus, it moves it right. If it's a negative, it moves it left. What does the plus 3 do? It moves it up 3. What is my vertex? What is my vertex?
3.
Okay, it would be 2 comma 3.
I said that twice.
2, 3. Now, that's gonna go in the middle of my XY chart. Now you got underneath the graph, you got a spot for the vertex. So put 2, 3. We need to pick, it says make a table using what? Points to the left and points to the right. Use the x coordinate of the vertex. So what are the values that are going to be on that number line there? If I go to the right, it gets bigger, so it's going to be 3 and 4. And if I go to the left, it's going to get smaller, which will be 1 and 0. So these are the x values you have to use in your table. You cannot just put down -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. You did that. When it doesn't tell you what to do, you use those, but this tells you to use the vertex and 2 points to the left and right. All right, plug in 0, plug in 1, plug in 2, plug in 3, plug in 4. Now, when you plug in 2, you should know the answer. What do you got?
I got 0, I got 7.
Okay.
And then 1, I got 4.
Okay.
And then 3, I got 4, and then 7.
Okay, so when you plug in 0, you should get 7. That is correct. So 0, 7. I got 1, 4. I got 2, 3. I got 3, 4. I got 4, 7. It should still be a parabola. This one only has 5 points. It only has 5 points. But to use those 5 points, you need to have the chart. You need to have the vertex listed. It should open up. Okay, so plot those. We're gonna go through the rest of the practice tests together. You can just put those answers either on the sheet you started or you can put it on the back of this one. It doesn't really matter. So now let's go back to the last one we did. We finished 12, we finished 13. The next one is going to be 14. Let me do something here. You don't have to graph 14. No. Yeah, have your practice test handy. We're going to do number 14. You don't have to graph it, but sometimes it helps. If I don't graph it, or even in general, what do I need to do? Hold on. of this thing and it won't get, you can't get rid of it. All right, what do I need to find here? Do you know how to even do this problem?
Yeah.
Me?
The vertex?
Gotta find the vertex, exactly. So we gotta find the vertex. Now, the function is y equals negative 8x squared plus 32x. How do I find the vertex? Just like we did in the earlier ones, we have to use x equals x equals negative b over 2f. All right, take a second. Figure out what your vertex is. Or figure out what the x is, plug that in, and figure out the y. I'll do it here in a second, but see what you come up with. All right, b is 32, so it's negative 32 over 2 times negative 8. I get negative 32 divided by negative 16. I got positive 2. Plug that in to negative 8. 2 squared plus 32 times 2. Braden, what'd you get for that?
What?
Did you get a y value yet?
I'm currently working on it.
All right, I'll wait. We'll see what Leighton had and see if you agree.
Oh, I got 32.
Leighton says 32.
I got 32.
Okay. Do we agree? All right, so you got 32. So your vertex is 32. All right, let's look at the questions. All right. The max height, time it takes to get to the max height. To get to the max height. And what does it say? Time it takes to hit the ground?
Yeah.
Time to reach the ground. Okay, time it takes to reach the ground. All right, from our vertex, oh, I didn't write that down right. The vertex is not just 32, it is 232. Okay. Now, if I'm gonna graph this, like I said, let me just graph it even though you don't have to. I'm gonna make this go up by 8s for every 2, 8, 16, 24, 32, and I'll let that one be 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4. So 232 is right there. What did we say for all these problems? Where does it hit? Where does it start kind of on the left-hand side? It hits at 0, 0, because when the time is 0, the height is 0. Okay? So if you got 0, 0 right here, this is your axis of symmetry where the vertex is. That cuts it in half. What point am I going to have on that right-hand side? Where's it going to hit at? It's going to hit at 4. So you got this graph. This looks this way. All right, what is the maximum height that hits? Where you got a question?
32.
32. Maximum height that hits is 32. Mia, how long does it take to get there?
2 seconds.
2 seconds. Oops. And then and even from that, you don't need to graph it. If it takes 2 seconds to get to the highest point, it's going to take another 2 to get down. So for a total of
4 seconds.
4 seconds to reach the ground. All right, 4 seconds. Graph can help, not absolutely necessary. All you really need to do is find the vertex. Vertex will tell you that the height, it'll tell you the time it gets to the height, all you have to do is double that X value to get to the time it reaches the ground. Okay, 15 and 16, kind of what we went over Monday and Tuesday. For the following, identify the narrower graph. So for 15, you just be able, there's actually no work involved. You gotta understand what's going on, but what would be the answer for 15? Which one is narrower? Okay, Alex, do you know?
G of X.
G of X, and can you explain why?
Is a bigger number of X.
Is the 5 is bigger than 2, the bigger the number in front of the X squared, the narrower the graph. And you can ignore the negative. So if you look at 16, okay, George, which one would be narrower?
F of X.
F of X. Because even though you got the negative, don't worry about that. That just tells you. So you're really just looking at the 4. You're looking at the 1/2. 4 is clearly bigger than 1/2. So that's going to make that one narrower. Okay. And 17 and 18, you just have to tell me which way the graph is moved. So describe the transformation. So where does X squared, if you think what X squared looks like, it always hits at 0, 0. So basically we're just figuring out where the vertex is. What do you got there?
Would 17 be right 3 and up 5?
Not right 3.
Left.
Left 3. It's always the opposite. So it's left 3 and it's up 5. Vertex would be -3, 5. Vertex would be -3, 5. 18, Brooke, what do you think?
Right 1, left 6.
Watch what you're saying there. Say it again.
Right 1,
Okay.
left 6.
You can't go right and then left. This one is right 1.
Down 6.
There we go. I think that's what you meant. Right 1, down 6. Vertex is 1, -6. 1, -6. Okay, this is your test. You got those 3 graphs we just did on the front. Review. Keep this out. I'm going to take your homework grade off of this. See what you got. If you did not finish it from yesterday, that's what you're going to do right now. You're going to finish it. If